This slide is mainly for reference, but I would like you to listen to it once just to refresh your memory on what this is, and so you'll have an idea later. If you ever need to come back to this, you'll know where to come in order to find the information. So here is just a reminder that contrasts need to be orthogonal for best interpretation. And so if you have more than one contrast code, you always need to check that they're orthogonal. And this is how you would do it. So we have contrast codes 1 and 2 on the far left for the rows, and then we have across the top the columns are the different departments that we have in our study, or the different groupings. And so we have the family studies, biology, and business across the top, and then we have a row at the very end on the right that tells us the sum of those weights. Okay, so we are creating our contrast weights in order to properly test our hypotheses when we're comparing means across these groups. So contrast number 1, recall, is the negative 0.66, positive 0.33, and positive 0.33. So we're contrasting the family studies group against the other two. And so that should be clear to you when you just look at the weights, what the research question is, or the hypothesis is, just by looking at those weights. So we know that since family studies has a different weight than the other two, that means that we have a hypothesis that that group is going to differ from the other two. Contrast number 2, family studies, is designated as 0, so that means it's out of the contrast. We're not interested in that group at all. We are simply comparing the other two against one another. So that's something else to practice, is just by looking at something, can you tell what is being researched? What's the question that's being asked? So we want, again, those contrast weights to sum to 0, and that's the last column, and they do. So negative 2/3 plus positive 1/3 plus positive 1/3 is equal to 0, and similarly 0 plus negative half plus positive half is also 0. One more step in the orthogonal to set these up in an orthogonal fashion is to look across the contrast within each department. So for family studies, do those products, we're going to take those products first and calculate them. So we're going to have negative 2/3 times 0. We're going down the column this time, and we're going to indicate that by a 0. Okay, so that product is 0. And then we're going to multiply positive 1/3 times negative 1/2, and that is negative 0.17. And then finally, for the business department, we'll do the same thing. We'll go down the column. Positive 1/3 times positive 1/2 is equal to positive 0.17, as you can see in the product row at the very bottom. And finally, we're going to add those products together. So there's quite a few steps, and you do not have to memorize these, but just know that this is how it's done. So we would add up the product of the first one, which is 0, the family studies product. We'd add the product of the biology, which is negative 0.17, and then the product of the business, which is positive 0.17. Add those up, and those also sum to 0. So we have this perfect orthogonal test in this case. One more quick reminder that the maximum number of possible orthogonal contrasts for a particular categorical predictor is going to be the number of groups, in this case 3 departments, minus 1. So you cannot test any more than that and have your contrast still be orthogonal. So we have to kind of choose which two we want to test and just go with those.